3. Good evening. We are just before Rosh Hashana, and Rosh Hashana is a time for both family as a festive occasion, and also many hours in Bet Knesset for prayers and introspection and looking into ourselves and seeing what needs to be corrected. It's part of the whole high holidays and those days that we're trying to better our ways towards Yom Kippur. And it's interesting, if you talk to different people, you're going to see what they emphasize. Some people emphasize the festive side of Rosh Hashanah, and other people emphasize more the standing on trial and going into court. That's depends who you speak to. But in any case, we all spend more time in shul, in the synagogue, than we used to. And we have to, I want tonight to get a little bit into the atmosphere of the prayers and to understand. I won't be able to talk about everything, just a few main points. But first, introduction. There are many versions to that tefillah. As I said, Ashkenazi and Sephardi, we're going to mention that word many times today. Many versions to the tefillah. And sometimes, especially if you don't speak the language, meaning Hebrew, it's even more complicated and difficult, because it's difficult to open your heart when your hands opening the Siddur and you don't understand what's written there. And so we always say that the most important prayer that we can have is the personal one, in your language, at your time. Yet we want to be a part of the nation. And for that, the rabbis gave us set times for prayers and set prayers. And although, don't forget your personal prayer, and carry on praying personally for whatever you need at the time. And so I was praying before giving this lecture, so my lesson will go right, because you never know where it's going to go. And if you go somewhere, then you do the prayer for the road. So whatever situation you're at the moment, whatever challenge or test or whatever it is that you're facing, that's where your prayer is going to be facing as well. And so we feel that need, but Rosh Hashanah is different. In a prayer, we get into this special mode of expressing our inner self. Yet many people mistakenly think that the prayer is some kind of a bank that you can just go and get what you want out of it, and you draw money and you draw goods that are there for you. I want to talk about other religions, because it's very much strong by us as well, but I don't want to talk about the Jews, because they're all righteous people. But in other religions, in other cultures, you have this approach to God, just like this goldfish. The story about the guy who caught the goldfish and gave him 3 requests. You have this it's very famous story. I don't know if it's goldfish in other languages, but that's how we call it in Hebrew. So you think that you can, whatever you ask for, the prayer is going to answer, and that's what it's about. Rabbi Nachman of Breslav teaches us that don't feel that you wasting God's time. We need to ask, even the example he gives, that you one of your buttons from your shirt fell down and you lost it. Pray for that button is going to be found. That's how the prayer should be. It should be for anything that you're missing in life. Anything that you're missing in life, and if you see something missing in the world, that's when you need to pray for it. Now, again, I'm saying a sentence. Rosh Hashanah is different. Listen carefully. We pray the best prayer that we can have in Rosh Hashanah is to reach the level that we don't just pray for ourselves, but we pray for the world. And that's what Rosh Hashanah is about. Rosh Hashanah is not praying about ourselves only, but we're trying to make the world a better place. And there's a beautiful parable I heard from Rabbi Reuven Feierman. He says that imagine a big factory that you have this most simplest worker in that factory, that he comes to the guy in a storage room there, and he says to him, listen, I'm missing 3 screws for my machine. Please give me those screws. So the guy at the place there told him, I'm sorry, I cannot give you even 1 screw before you give me a signed document from your supervisor that I need to give you those screws. That's how it works in the world. Lots of bureaucracy, and it's very well known, and we're familiar with that. So the worker goes back to his place, and he's sad because the whole department is going to be shut down because of those 3 screws that no one could give him. All of a sudden, on his way back, he sees the owner of the whole factory walking with all these people around him, very important men. And then he approached him and he says to him, you know, I cannot really work. I need those 3 screws and no one can give them to me. Do you think the owner or his people are going to be upset with him, with this simple worker, for asking for this small thing? How dare you approach the owner? No, obviously not. The owner is only too happy to give him and to get him those screws because he wants the department to carry on working. Thank you for letting me know, he's going to say. And if your department wasn't working, I was going to lose lots of money. So well done. I'm going to organize and arrange those screws in a second. So it looks like the owner is helping the worker. But no, it's the worker that is helping the factory. And that's how we should look at prayer. That's how we should look at the world. And many rabbis may say it in many different words, that when you ask for something, you should try and think of the bigger picture. Try and get rid of the darkness in the world, not just in your little life. And those screws are not for you. It's for you to be able to do a better job in the big picture, in the big world. And that's what you're trying to make up here. Fulfilling our personal needs is only the means to get to the end result, and that is the standing in front of God. So it's the whole different approach to prayers, and that's what it's about. And the tefillah, the prayer is, we should stop and we should connect to our inner self. And connecting to the inner self means no more masks, no more things that hide. You know, you stand as you are, really in front of God. Take your time, do for as long as you want. You know, it's actually very powerful and very strong. And how do we know that a prayer from the heart is being answered? It's written in the Torah. In the book of Shmot, in Exodus, it says there that you should not torture the widow or the orphan. That's what it says. Why? The Torah carries on and saying, because if you do torture them, if they cry out to me, then I will hear their crying out to me, and I will kill you. That's what it says. And your wives are going to stay widows, and your children are going to be orphans, and that's how harsh the punishment is going to be. So we learn from it that when someone really cries to God, and that's the cry of those poor people that are really lacking. The whole family was shaken when someone died there, and now they stayed as a widow, orphan, and that's what happens. And they really realize how fragile life is, and so they really cry out to God from the bottom of their soul. God, hear that kind of prayer. That prayer penetrates all the gates of heaven, and it reaches straight to God. And how do we know this? Because God says very clearly and harshly that if you do torture those poor people, then I'm going to punish you in a more severe way. So we can only wish ourselves that we'll be able to have that kind of prayer of those poor people without being that poor person. It says in the book of Tehillim, in Psalms, King David writes, Pana el tfilat ha'arar velo baza tefilatam. Meaning, God listening to those prayers, and he doesn't look down on it. He doesn't say it's nothing. No. The Midrash explains that we're talking about generations that there is no temple, there is no prophet, there is no high priest to turn to. And what do we have? Just the prayers. And which are the last prayers left for us? Are the prayers of Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. King David is asking God to seriously look and be okay and listen to the prayer of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The rabbis ask, why Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? There are so many other prayers. Why does he talk about those prayers only? So he says that on the prayers of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it's the common denominator there of so many words is that we don't ask for ourselves. We are making God our king. Meloch al kol ha'olam kulo bichvodecha. We are making God our king. That's what the words are saying. That's what the shofar is saying. You know, where in a special ceremony, you blow the trumpet, you blow the shofar. We we anoint, we appoint God as the king. We tell everybody, and especially ourselves, that's a story. That's a story. There's a beautiful midrash about the story in the book of Kings. If you remember, the prophet after Elijah, his name was Elisha. Elisha, that prophet, he was going from place to place. And when he reached a certain area, there was a woman that was helping him. And she gave him very generously a room at the attic, upstairs. And she gave him a lamp and a bed, and she made his life comfortable. Whenever he passed by, he was there. So he asked her, do you need anything? Can I talk to the supervisor? I know people. I can give you whatever you want. I can get whatever you want. What do you want to ask for? That's what Elisha tell that woman. And that woman answers him, Betoch ami anochi yoshavet, which means literally, I am sitting with my people. What does it mean? Who cares? We know that's what you do. What does it mean? So the Zohar explains that day when he asked her, what do you need? It was Rosh Hashanah. And she did. She really needed something very important. That woman couldn't have children, and she really wanted to have a child. Elisha will later on help her and give her a blessing, and she will have a child with her husband. But she doesn't ask for it. Why doesn't she ask for it? Because, listen carefully, Rosh Hashanah is not a time for personal requests. Rosh Hashanah is a time that we ask for the whole world and for the whole nation and for everybody. And although she had something personal to ask, she didn't dare. Because on Rosh Hashanah, we don't care about our little screws that we're missing. We're asking about the big picture. We're asking about the factory to carry on operating correctly, and how is it going to happen with the screws that God is going to give me. So I'm going to get the screws. She's going to get the child. But the child should not be the goal. The child is only part of the big picture that we cry out to God and we appoint God and remember that He is the King. That's what it's about. I hope you're following. It's a little bit of a deep idea, but it's a beautiful way of looking at the prayers of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Today I want to talk about two prayers during the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur services. And for that, we have to understand a Hebrew word. It's actually the origin for it is from Greek, but the word is piyut, liturgical poem or poetry or ODE. I don't know what that word means. Never seen that word. Your English is better than mine, so you know that word. So that's what it means. That's what piyut is. And piyut is a poem. It's a Jewish holy song written in, they write from the time of the Talmud. So it's for hundreds of years they've been writing piyutim, and piyutim came into everywhere in Judaism, from the Shabbat songs. I don't know if you know the song. Ki Eshmera Shabbat, Ki Eshmera Shabbat. Many tunes to that song. We sing it on the meal on Shabbat, written by Ibn Ezra. That's a piyut of a few hundred years ago. We have another piyut, famous one of Shabbat songs, Dror Ikra. Many piyutim came into the kinot, the lamentations we say on Tisha B'Av. Many piyutim came into the slichot that we say now, before Rosh Hashanah and after Rosh Hashanah, before Yom Kippur. And also, some piyutim came into our prayers on daily basis, mainly on Shabbatot and festivals. That's what piyut is about. And the piyut is written by people. And if you think you don't understand, don't feel bad, because Israelis, or should I say Hebrew speakers, also don't understand it, because it's written usually in such high language, in such a poetic language, that I wonder if the word piyut and poetic is the same word. And it's such a high language that we don't, many words we don't understand. And that's what those piyutim are about. And they sometimes come to be instead of the usual prayers, and at other times it comes as additional to the prayers. That's the piyutim that we say. Now, one of those piyutim that we say on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is called Ochila Lael. I'm going to sing one of the tunes, and listen carefully. I think it's beautiful. I chose it because I like it. So you stuck with me, you have to listen to it. Not so long. Ochila Lael, acha לפניו, אשאלה ממנו, מענה לשון, אשר בקהלם, השירה וזאת, אביע רננות, בעד מפעלם, לאדם מלכי לב, ומהשם מענה לשון, השם שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. It carries on. I don't want to waste the whole lesson on a song, but this is Ashkenazi tune that many synagogues, Ashkenazi Jews sing it. Sephardi, many of the Sephardi people also say those few words. It's so ancient. This is from 1500 years ago, meaning 1,500 years ago. That's how old those words are. Later on, the piyutim had rhymes. This piyut doesn't rhyme. Now, if you don't know what Ochila Lael means, again, don't feel bad. You ask Hebrew speakers, they also don't know. Luckily, in Hebrew, we have something amazing, which is called roots. In English, you hardly have roots to the words, but in Hebrew, we do. So if you break the word and if you change it around, maybe you can get to the meaning. Ochila, leyachel. Leyachel is a high word to anticipation. Vaychal Moshe, it says in the Torah in the book of Shmot, and we read it every time on fast days. Vaychal Moshe. He was looking forward to be in front of God. Ochila Lael, to God. Achale fanav. Achale means I will pray before him, and that's what it means. Esh'ala mimenu ma'ane lashon. I will ask of God to help me express the words correctly. Ma'ane lashon. Lashon is tongue. Ma'ane la'anot is to answer, to understand, to be able to say the words. Asher bikal am ashira uzo. I'm going to say it in front of everybody. Kal am is in public. I'm saying those words in public, and ashir uzo, like I'll talk about God's strength. I can tell you on a personal level. I don't know if I mentioned it to you before, but I'm a chazan more years than I'm not. Meaning, most of my life, from I think I'm 20 years old, I've been leading services on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. In the beginning, just for my friends, that they had to bear my inexperience, and later on, I became a chazan at other places. And today, I can tell you that when I'm not a chazan, my prayers, when I'm not leading the service, my prayers are not as good, because I really feel that I'm carrying the whole congregation on my shoulders, and I need to help them reach higher levels. And that's a big responsibility. I can tell you more than that, which is something amazing. I think I mentioned it to you before. I'm fascinated by it every year. I don't know if it's going to be this year as well. But for me, out of the 6 fast days that we have on the Jewish calendar, I fast all of them. The easiest for me to fast is what's for other people the most difficult. That's Yom Kippur. Because on Yom Kippur, I stand for 3 hours straight without moving my feet. And I feel that the prayers are carrying me up. It's not me. It's not me. It's about the responsibility, the congregation, the prayers. I don't know how to explain it, but that's how it is. It carries me up to high levels, and it's amazing. It's easier than, and you know, when you sing, you need to wet your throat a little bit. Yom Kippur, not allowed, and you have to sing for a few hours straight, and it's amazing how it's you get strength you don't know where from, and it's actually carrying me up. And that's how I feel on Yom Kippur. It's the easiest fast because it goes the fastest. You don't feel it, and it's already the end, and you feel elevated. And that's what it means. Asher bikal am ashir uzo. I'm singing in front of everybody. Abi'a renanot be'ad mif'alav. Abi'a, le'abi'a means to speak. I will express myself. Rina is shira, like with song. I express my words be'ad mif'alav, for the big factory. Mif'al is a factory. It's amazing how it goes with my parable that I mentioned earlier. For God's huge factory, which is the world, that I'm the one that's helping to put those 3 screws in. That's my job in the factory, and I'm helping the big picture, and I'm expressing it. I'm saying to everyone, listen, we are all a part of this. We all workers in this big factory, and we all part of what's happening here. Le'adam ma'archei lev u'me'ashem ma'aneh lashon, meaning, by the way, all those things, all those, you see, Aleph, 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 it's been thought of, and it's all verses. I'm going to send it to you if you want. It's all the sources of exactly where in the Tanakh those rabbis who wrote the piyutim, those poems, They knew the Tanakh off by heart, and they could pick a verse in the middle of nowhere and bring it into their poem. That's amazing how they did it. And so, le'adam marchei lev, I have things in my heart, but only God will help me express it with my tongue. If it's not for God's help, then I have no chance. I won't be able to. I won't be able to say what I want to say. Hashem sfatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. That's, that pasuk from Tehillim. We say it in the beginning of every prayer, every Amidah prayer. We say that sentence as introduction. Please, God, help me open my mouth and say the right thing. That's what it's about. That poem, the whole thing, it's not actually the whole thing, it's almost the whole thing. That poem is actually is called Reshut. Reshut means you ask for permission. That poem was written for people to focus themselves. We come into something important in the prayers. Let's ask God to help me express my thoughts in words in the right way. That's what it comes for. And as I told you, Sfardim would maybe say it before or in the beginning of the Musaf prayer. The Ashkenazim would say it in the middle of the Musaf prayer during the repetition of the Amidah, just before they go to the place where it's only in Rosh Hashana, and that's the three special brachot with many, many verses, Malchuyot, Zichronot, Shofarot. The three parts where we talk about God as a king. We remember that Rosh Hashanah is called Yom HaZikaron, Day of Remembrance, and Shofarot, Day of a Shofar. That's what Rosh Hashanah is about. So before going there, we ask God to help us express ourselves correctly. The second piyut I want to say a few words about is even more famous, and that's a piyut called Untaneh Tokef. The story is told about Rabbi Amnon of Mainz. I don't remember if I mentioned the story to you, but it's quite a hard story. I hope you're strong. The story is told about Rabbi Amnon that in the 11th century, where he lived in Germany somewhere. At that time, the church was ruling everywhere. And the local bishop, the local head of church, was also head of a town. He really appreciated knowledge, and he liked Rabbi Amnon, who was quite sharp. And every time he used to talk to Rabbi Amnon, he used to tell him, why do you stay a Jew? It's such a waste of time being a Jew. There's so many things you're not allowed to do, or jobs you're not allowed to take, or places you cannot live in. The Jews had lots of restrictions and lots of anti-Semitism. If you convert to Christianity, I will give you the world. You'll get as much money as you want. The priest was trying to convince Rabbi Amnon to convert, knowing that if Rabbi Amnon will convert, the whole community will be after him. He was the big rabbi at the time. Rabbi Amnon obviously said no, until one day, Rabbi Amnon was maybe tired, maybe he was need to go home quickly. So the bishop was putting pressure on him, convert. Rabbi Amnon told him, give me 3 days to think about it. And the priest said, fine, take 3 days. As Rabbi Amnon left the bishop, he said to himself, what am I, crazy? I didn't even think for a second to convert. I just wanted to get out of there, but obviously not. He forgot all about it. The 3 days came and gone, and Rabbi Amnon did not go back to the priest. And that's what made the bishop even more upset. And he sent his soldiers to get Rabbi Amnon, and he said to him, how dare you say you're going to come and you didn't come? Think of a punishment. And in those days, a punishment is not to write 1,000 times, whatever, I won't do it again. It needs to be a proper punishment. So Rabbi Amnon said, you know what? I made a mistake. I shouldn't have told you that I was going to think about it. I think the tongue that made that mistake of speaking stupidly should be cut. The tongue should be cut. The bishop, in his cruelty, said, no. The tongue could stay. But the legs that said that you're going to come and didn't come, they should be chopped off. But I'm giving you a way out. If you convert now, I won't do anything to you. Rabbi Amnon said, never. So they started cutting. And they cut off his legs, limb after limb. And then when they finished with the legs, they went to his hands and arms. And every time they told him, listen, you still have a chance. Convert to Christianity. And he said, no way, until he was left with no limbs at all. And they put him on some kind of a stretcher. He is going to die soon. It was exactly Yom Kippur. Or Rosh Hashana, that's the story. I still don't remember exactly. And that's when he asked to be brought with his huge pain. He asked to be brought to the synagogue. And there he said that prayer that is so amazing. A few minutes after he finished his prayer, he died. Later on, he came in a dream to another rabbi called Rav Meshulam something. What was I forgot his name. Rav Klonimus ben Meshulam. That was his name. And he in a dream he told him the song, and he told all the Jewish communities. That's what the story is told. I don't know if the story is correct, but it's definitely very emotional. Someone didn't agree to die. Look at the word Rabbi Amnon. Amnon from the word emunah. He had a strong belief. He had a strong faith in God, and so that song became very well known throughout Ashkenazi communities. It started with the Italians to the Ashkenazi, and it reached even the Sephardi customs, because this prayer is so sharp and to the point that I assume test me on it. When we're gonna see each other in 300 years' time, I assume Sephardim will also add it to their newer machzerim, to the Siddur of Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, because it's so powerful. Listen to the words, listen to the tune. There are many tunes. One of the most famous tunes that was written about 30, 40 years ago, after the Yom Kippur War. After the Yom Kippur War, a big writer of tune, he died already, he wrote the tune at the kibbutz where he lived at the time, called Bet Hashita. He wrote the tune after 11 soldiers died just from one kibbutz. You can imagine, for a small kibbutz to lose 11 of their kibbutz members, that's a lot. In Yom Kippur War, that's a war that we lost the most people of all wars, and so 11 were killed from that kibbutz. And so a guy called Yair Rosenblum, he wrote that tune for the song, and it became very famous. But I'm gonna when I daven, I add some of his tune, but I usually stick more to the traditional one. Listen to the words, listen to the tune. ובשופר גדול ייתקע, בקול דממה דקה, יישמע. I skipped a few words, a few lines. It says there that day, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, is a day of judgment. That God opens all the books, and he looks and he sees all the deeds of ours, and we hear the sound of the shofar. ומלאכים יחפזון וחילו רדה יוחזון. מלאכים יחפזון, even the angels are running around, and everybody's intense, and it's a big day of trial. You know, we stand in the court, and what's going to be? What's going to be? And we all go through God. ותחתוך קצבה לכל בריותיך ותכתוב. I can hear מראש ישיבה, רב עמיטל, זכר צדיק לברכה, saying those words and crying, V'tichtov et gezar dinam, that God cuts and decides what's the verdict going to be. Because Berosh Hashana yikatevun Uveyom tzom kippur yechatemun. I don't have time to carry on. It's very emotional. It's very strong. On Rosh Hashanah, we are written. On Yom Kippur, we are sealed. Who is going to live? Who will die? What kind of death we might have? You know, in the past 3 years, we shout that word, Magefa. Who is going to die from a plague, from a disease, from corona, from whatever it is? You know, it's so relevant always. Who's going to die from a fire, and whatever it is. That's what this prayer is about. And then we shout all together, Utshuva, Utfila, Utzdaka, Ma'avirim et Torah Gzera. Tshuva, repentance, tefillah, prayer, tzedakah, charity, that can change the verdict. So in summary, we are praying on Rosh Hashanah, not for ourselves, but for the big factory of God. And when we pray for the big factory, we please God, gonna get those few screws that we're missing, and that's gonna help us go through the next year and have a better life. That's all for tonight. I wish you all Shana Tova, Ktiva v'Chatima Tova. Keep in touch.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Thank you, Rabbi. Very good.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.